Hi, everybody. Hi, Shirley.
Hi, Cal.
How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And I'm excited about our show today. I'm very excited, everybody. Oh my gosh. Welcome back to Psychology and the Soul. This is where psychology and spirituality come together in a real grounded conversation. And tonight, Shirley, is a little different. So there's no set topic. And because tonight's conversation is going to be guided by you. So this is our live question and answer episode, a space to ask the questions that maybe you've been thinking of, or you've had some, you need some information about, or if there's something that Shirley and I can help you with, whether it's spiritual or psychological. This is a space to ask those questions, anything that you've been struggling with or you're curious about, or if something maybe you're trying to better understand.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's kind of what we wanted this show to be really about. It's creating a space where people can explore human experience openly, thoughtfully, without judgment, and from both perspectives, that we have. I mean, you've taught me so much when
vice versa, sister.
When I first met you, with the spiritual piece of it, my left brain is like, what? But I always knew, and also I just trusted you so much, and I always knew there was something else there, but I didn't quite have the words for it. So it really opened up my mind for it, So tonight we're just inviting all kinds of questions, about psychology, about emotions, about spirituality, trauma, relationships, boundaries, anxiety, intuition, grief. I mean, everything.
Yes. Okay. This is going to be so good. So go ahead and post your questions live in the comments, or you can send us a direct message or share something that you've been carrying that you like some perspective on, something that you've been thinking about. And if you're just sitting there quietly listening, that's fine too, because Shirley and I always have a lot to say. But chances are that somebody else is thinking also about the same question. So if you do, we're ready to rock and roll. But Shirley, I thought we'll start with this question. And because I see another question there that people have been so nasty. This is from Leslie, taking it to heart. Please advise. Thank you. So Leslie, and hi, Julianne Siegel. How are you doing, my friend? So I thought,
let me say hi to my cousin in Argentina, Pato. Hola, Pato.
Hi, hola, Pato.
She doesn't understand, but she listens to us. So I wanted to do a shout out.
So happy that she's here. Oh my gosh. All right. So here's a question that we got from Anonymous, Cheryl. Okay. And this is the question. She said, but she wants to be anonymous. My question is about politics and hatred. I don't mean to laugh, but it's a big one. It's a big question. Well, it's good to be informed about what's happening in the world. You can't believe everything you hear or read anymore. So I always try to keep a distance from political things. James and yourself always speak about forgiveness and love, with love being the way forward. And I believe this. Why is there so much hate around this particular thing? It shouldn't be Democrat or Republican. We are all souls, and it's very hard for me to have to read or hear the constant bickering, berating, and downright hatred towards one another over this. I thought we were supposed to evolve. That's what I thought too. Yeah. But it seems like we are going the opposite way. All I want is peace and love. Will it ever get better? What can I do to ease my mind and heart? Because all of this hate is really bringing me down. I know this isn't a touchy topic, so I understand if you don't feel comfortable answering it on the show. No, it's interesting because Shirley and I understand this greatly. We see it every day play out, right, Cheryl? Yeah. And one of the things that I did want to mention is, interesting enough, I did a class with Janelle Campbell on Friday. And it was really good, right? Yeah. And one of the things that Janelle did is she was channeling the Intergalactic Federation. And one of the things that they said for this particular time, which I thought was so important, it goes with this, is really everybody can do this individually. This is an individual thing. And so if you're waiting for this person to have a different consciousness or this person to have a different consciousness, and why can't it? We all have peace and love and all that. It's not necessarily why we came to Earth. We did come to Earth to have peace and love within ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so what the information was, be still, be present, and go within. And I think that's only thing that any of us can do. Shirley, what say you on this?
Absolutely. I agree. Because it can be really, I mean, it is not, it can be, it really is hard and very heavy. So what I've told everyone, including myself, is only know yourself well enough to know how much you can take, how much information you can listen to, or it's not about putting your head in the sand. It's really about knowing how much your nervous system can handle, because we are going through really, really tough times. We're as divided as, in my lifetime I've ever seen. And so that's really important to only take in as much as your nervous system can handle.
And this is a situation for our souls to grow and change consciousness. So the consciousness that we're looking for when you come to Earth is to rise above this. So to rise above, it's to, go inward, to bring peace to yourself and go forward that way. And that's about the only thing I know that you really can do in a case like this.
And, somebody said this to me yesterday. I was at a good friend's Memorial Day party, and we were kind of talking about exactly what this, this anonymous person saying, all I want is peace and love, and will we even get there? And he said, it's one person at a time.
That's exactly what the intergalactic field said.
Right? If you have love and peace in your heart, even though there's so many awful things happening around you, that energy gets radiated around, and any little thing that you can do, even smiling, at a stranger as you're walking into the store.
Yeah.
That alone can start to kind of shift the energy a little bit, and then it becomes collective, because we see how that happens. It's so interesting. Somebody lets me in, in my car, and then immediately I feel the need to do it to someone else. And it really gets passed on that way. So smiling at one person will maybe cause that person to smile at someone else. And then it gets, we have to kind of look at it. I know big picture, but also one-on-one, small.
Right. And where we are right now, it's the one-on-one, is to shift your own consciousness. And what I find is when you shift your own consciousness, when you start to change, things start to fall out of the way. It doesn't really matter. You think differently, and it's better for you physically. It's better for you emotionally. It's better for you. So that's a really good question. And by the way, Anonymous, we'll be thinking about this question probably for the rest of many years. I mean, to me, it seems like it's a long situation, a long time situation.
When I've asked you, hey, when does it get a little better? Your answer is not what I want to hear.
Yeah. Now, everybody from the beginning would say, well, when is this going to end? Oh, I can't tell you how many. If I had a nickel for every time somebody said that, right? It was all constant. When is this going to change? When is it going to get better? And I'm like, did you sign up like I did for this lifetime? Because if you did, that's not what we signed up for. We signed up to have our free will time to change and shift our consciousness. That's what we signed up for. So individually, and then as you said, collectively, it begins to change. And that's very, very important, Yeah. So, okay, here's a question because Shirley and I have a lot of questions already, but Julie Musterman has a question, and she says, hi, ladies, great to see you. Well, great to see you, Julie. In the chronic illness community, a big topic is brain retraining or neuroplasticity. What do you think of these programs, and do you like anything in particular? Thank you so much. Shirley, this is for you.
Yeah. Well, what they have found out in the last 20 years of brain science is that the brain is plastic and we can rewire the brain. So that old idea of you can't teach an old dog new tricks was a lie, but that's how we thought it was, that once you learned something or once you were a certain way that you couldn't shift it. Now it takes a while, but in order to shift it, there's this wonderful neuropsychologist called Dr. Rick Hansen, and he wrote a book called The Buddha Brain. He's written many books, and that teaches you, if you want to shift something, you have to be very conscious and very purposeful. Because our automatic, what comes automatically is what we've done, how we've trained the brain, either because of, experiences in childhood and events that happen in our life. And also we have a negativity bias, which means that we will remember everything negative because that's what saved the species.
Oh, boy.
So I had to remember that in that cave is where my friend got killed by the bear. That's the cave we all had fun, but who gives a shit about the fun stuff? I need to remember where the danger is.
Yeah.
And the brain has that negativity bias. So it's not going to come naturally. And it's not because we're negative. It's not because there's something wrong with us, but focusing on the positive is not going to come naturally. And so you focus on something, even if it's just your favorite song came on the radio as you were driving. And in order to anchor it in the body, hold on, notice how it feels. Oh, I felt a little lighter. And just hold on to that for like 30 seconds. Notice that. And that starts to shift.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's very real exercises that you can use to start to rewire your brain.
Okay. That's good to know, Shirley. Really good to know. I love that. It's not like teach an old dog new tricks. You can do that.
Exactly. So that was a lie.
That was a lie. Okay.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. Here's a good question. Hello, ladies. This is from T Hazen 73. I posted a question on Instagram, but not sure if it was seen. We all have a life review when we pass. Yes. How do young people have a life review when they are not here on this earth very long? That's a great question. I'm actually doing my show on Thursday, on this Thursday, on a life review, but let me answer this simply. For somebody who, assuming that when they are past, are you saying like under 6 or under 12 or whatever the age is that's young, they will look at the life. They'll look at it. Did they, were they loved? Did they feel loved? Those kind of things. Think like that. It's probably a little different than when you hit certain ages when you've gone through so much. But when you're young, I'm sure they're with the angels, and the angels are walking them through with their guides, and then looking, oh, there's my mom, there's my dad. It's a very loving and peaceful situation. So I hope that helps. Shirley, here's a question that I think we should answer. It's, when generational trauma is so deeply rooted within one's family that ailments or epigenetics are generational, how does one break that generational trauma?
Well, I mean, the first step to anything is to be aware of it, to understand that it comes from generational trauma and that you can be the catalyst to change. But you have to be aware of that. So you're not kind of on what I call emotional autopilot, where you're just going on because that's all you know, that's all you've seen. We've had, wonderful Kellee on the show, and she kind of sets the foundation to heal the generational trauma through family constellation therapy. That might be a way to go to kind of get it started. But the awareness of it, what is to really, do some work on that with a therapist. What trauma do I come from? What trauma got passed on through my generations, both on mom's side, both on dad's side, and become aware, how does that manifest in me?
And would you say, Shirley, that that's an individual work to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Again, maybe you could consider family therapy if it were safe to do that, and bringing up some of the generational traumas. But what I've noticed, even in my own family, is I'm amazed at how the traumas continued. Now, it doesn't matter. I could be wide awake. Somebody else in my family could be wide awake. I'm just amazed that a sibling or somebody else would not be aware, would have no awareness.
And that's the key. I mean, I agree with you that family therapy can be wonderful, even if it's not the whole family, but a few. But you have to, the family members need to be aware that there is a problem and that we want to heal it.
Right. And that could be, you could seek a trauma informed therapist too. I mean,
absolutely. And it's not about blame. Many times I hear, you can't blame your parents forever. And it comes from somewhere. The brain develops between 0 and 6, and our environment creates how our brain forms. I mean, it just does. Environment can mean, if we live in a war-torn environment, that's going to have an influence, but mostly it's our experiences at home. And then, when we're just living, right? Yeah. And so it's important to, again, acknowledge and be aware of that. It's not about blame. It's to understand, this is why I think this way. Yeah. And then, of course, yes, it is our responsibility to get the help that we need to shift things and to become, to live to our fullest potential and become who we want to be. Yes, that is our responsibility. But there's such an important piece to understand where it came from.
Right. Yeah. Right. And also what I've discovered too is when I will have that aha moment or deal with whatever the traumas have been, I can pass it on in a conversation with a sibling or a family member or somebody generationally that has an opportunity then to have some awareness or some awakening.
Right. Right.
Everybody has this opportunity. So,
Mm-hmm.
but great question. Okay, Tracy says, Kellee, wise and wonderful women, what is going on right now? This energy is insane. I'm going to be talking about that too on Thursday, Tracy, but I will say that it has been insane. But in June, we have an amazing situation that occurs in June, and you'll love this, Shirley. We actually have Jupiter, which is the largest benefic planet, the spiritual guru, and it's exalted in Cancer, and it moves into Cancer using Vedic astrology, and it's there for about a year, and it's going to be an amazing calming effect on the world and on everybody. It will bring a calming to it. So the energy, as crazy as it has been with all these different, gas leaks and this thing going up, and I mean, all these different types of unbelievable situations, that will calm down in June. Everything will calm down in June.
Thank God. A little bit.
A little bit. I hope I can say that. Okay, so here's another question. This is from Leshel Grass. How to deal with single shaming and when somebody treats life like a competition, wants to be up on you, that they think their life path is better than yours.
Oh my goodness.
Does that sound like a personality disorder? I don't know. Somewhere?
I mean, it could sound like someone who has a lot of shame, isn't fully aware of their shame, and projects it onto somebody else. That's what we call projective identification.
Right.
So it could be someone who isn't aware of their own stuff, but read the question again.
How do you deal with somebody with single shaming, somebody that single shames somebody, when somebody treats life like a competition and they want one up on you and they think that their life path is better than yours?
Yeah. Well, that's just it. When we have made to feel, unimportant, and
Right.
that comes from childhood. It just does. Then the only way that we can feel valid or that we can feel alive is through competition. See, I won. See, my issue's bigger than yours. See, it's someone who wants to feel seen in all the wrong ways, because maybe they were never seen. And what happens is when someone does it like this so unconsciously, when they're not aware of their own stuff, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So my need to be seen the way that I am, and that's why I used the word wrong, the way that I am trying to be seen is actually turning everybody off, and nobody wants to see me, and everybody will walk away from me. So it becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy.
And here's what I would do, Leshel. Boundaries. That would be it. Once you have that recognition that you're saying that somebody's treating you badly, but boundaries or out of the life. I mean, boundaries are really important here.
Because we can understand it, especially me being trained in trauma, I can understand where maybe the trauma comes from. However, that doesn't excuse the behavior.
Right.
So I can understand it and feel empathy for the person and set boundaries for myself, because that doesn't mean that I have to tolerate.
Right.
Unkind behavior. Yeah.
So here's a question from Renee. Hi, Renee Rossiter. She says, Kellee, any advice on integrating being present in the body and mind if we are struggling with physical pain or illness when the soul feels like it is a struggle to stay in the body in pain? I have a spine injury and the nerve pain is unbearable sometimes. Being present is a struggle.
Yeah, I can imagine. How would, from your perspective, Kellee, how would the soul want to stay in the body?
That would be that's such a tough one. I can't do pain.
Yeah.
So that's such a good one. Is there anything psychological, Shirley, that you could help with?
Sometimes pain can be exacerbated when there's an emotional, attached to it, an emotion attached to it. So what I would suggest is to maybe see a somatic therapist to work through any of the pain that could be emotional. And so then you're just left with the actual physical pain, which may be less and maybe a little bit more tolerable. You know, I'll never forget, I was having dinner with Dr. Peter Levine when it was a group of us. And just as I was sitting down, I was sitting across from him and I said, "Oh, my back is killing me." And he just kind of looked and he goes, "Well, we all know that's mother." Like the most matter of fact, like, you know, like everybody should know that. And then he just kept eating. It was the funniest thing. So there is a tie in, not to minimize actual physical pain, especially when there's, you know, I've had back pain because of a surgery, because of the sciatica. So, however, if we can reduce it, if there's emotional pain that's attached to it and we can reduce that, work through the emotional pain so we're just left with the physical pain, it may be a little bit more tolerable.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, possibly, I mean, I'm just going to throw this out there, Renee, but possibly working with somebody who does Reiki, maybe that could help too.
Yes.
Had some good experiences with that.
I hear acupuncture works really well with pain as well.
Yeah.
So maybe different modalities that can help.
Yeah, that might help. So here's a question from Connie Hamilton. She says, "I have a question. My partner died in October." I'm sorry, Connie. "I'm trying to work through my grief, going to grief meetings, which is very helpful. However, my family lives in a different state and I don't have many friends here other than my coworkers. My job is a lousy job and I know in my heart I should leave, but I'm afraid to because I have this empty space in my heart from my partner's recent transition. What should I do?" You know, Connie, usually what we say is your partner, your person passed away in October, so it's not quite a year yet. I don't think I'd make any decisions of moving or anything for that year. Really, there is something about that first year. It's a really hard one. And so I love that you're going to grief meetings. You know, make time to be with yourself, make time to take care of yourself, because grief like this is enormous. And so you have to be really good to yourself and kind to yourself. And maybe, you know, when you go through grief like this, you realize what's important and what's not important. And perhaps that lousy job is something you're ready to make a big change in, you know, in moving. So, but I wouldn't do anything right now. I would probably wait. Some people just jump right ahead when somebody has died, but it's been my experience to wait about a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then things start to change a little better, more for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And to let yourself feel the grief. It's hard to sit with those emotions. But to let yourself feel it, you know, as you've taught me, Kellee, and speak with him.
Yeah.
And whatever emotion comes, many times there's anger because you're angry at the person left. It's not rational, of course, but to name those emotions, you know, naming them helps them. You know, they say name it to tame it. So be aware, try not to drown in your emotions. You know, crying is a wonderful release for the nervous system. So let yourself cry. Also connect. I love that you're in a group. Because it's so helpful to have others who aren't just empathic, but are feeling the same pain.
Yeah.
So you don't feel so alone and so isolate. And when we feel alone in something, we tend to isolate, and that's not a good idea to do either.
Right. Very true. Hey, a shout out to Jerry Anderson. She said, "I got the job and I start next week." Yay, Jerry. I knew she was going to get hired. Okay, here's a question, Shirley. When people talk about healing their inner child, what does that actually mean psychologically and spiritually? Are we healing memories, our emotions, our unmet needs, or something deeper within the self?
Well, that's a very good question. And I'm glad that it was asked. We all have an inner child inside of us, you know, that little kid part of us, you know, and many times it's the part of us that kind of went through stuff as a little kid, you know, that didn't get what they needed, you know, that didn't get maybe the nurturing or the patience or the love and we all carry that little kid in us. That's the piece that comes out when we get triggered.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't feel like it because we're responding as the adult that we are now, but we're actually responding as that little kid. The reason why we got triggered, it's an unhealed wound from back then, you know? And so it's like I worked with someone today who had an experience when they were a teenager or a teacher was really, really shaming to them. And the work we do with the inner kid, because the mind doesn't know the difference between real or imagined, and so said, imagine, as you're sharing this story with me, imagine that teen boy, that little kid, I think it was maybe 10, preteen. What would he have wanted to say in response to that? And what would have been the perfect response from the teacher? Yeah. And so staying with that image, kind of we're shifting what, and all of a sudden he got a huge chill down his back.
Oh, wow, Shirley.
Which in my mind, from the nervous system, is releasing something that he had been holding on to, Yeah. Because in his adult life, he did not want to be seen, never spoke in public, didn't do things like that. And then we tied it back to shame, experiences where shame, somebody shamed him. And so, of course, shame is one of the most painful emotions we will ever feel. And so in his adult life, he was trying to avoid any situation, without realizing it, avoid any situation that might bring up that feeling of shame. Wow. So that's how we work with the inner child, where that wound is still carried by that little kid.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Okay. Here's a question from Sasha. Sasha says, hello, Kellee and Dr. Shirley. Is it possible for natural intuition to be confused with environmental programming? I don't know if I understand the question. Do you understand the question, Shirley?
Say it again.
Okay. Is it possible for natural intuition, so our natural intuition, to be confused with environmental programming? Oh, I think I get it. Oh, yeah. Is it possible? Oh, it certainly could be confused. That's why it's really important that you absolutely know thyself really, really well. Yeah. And know thyself, because that's how we start to really understand our intuition. Yeah. So we don't get confused with anything, any kind of programming that's going on.
And differentiate from the programming. Yes. But intuition is just, it feels different.
Right.
Yeah. One feels, I would guess, if I had to put it into words, one feels more like an impulse. The programming feels more like an impulse. Intuition is a knowing.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, it's a knowing. It's a quiet knowing. Suzanne Geisman does have a very helpful book on grief called Still Right Here. Thank you, Freebird. I don't know the answer to this, Shirley. And she says, how often would you have the acupuncture done for pain? I don't know, have an answer for
I don't know. Yeah, I would ask someone who's an expert in the field to find out how often to have it. But that's a wonderful question.
Yeah. And Lori says that she does use Reiki to help with pain levels, and it does help. I agree. It does help.
Yeah.
A lot. So Shirley, here's a question. Narcissism is a word we hear constantly now, and we're writing a book on it. How do we distinguish true narcissistic behavior from someone simply being emotionally wounded, defensive, or emotionally immature?
Well, that's a really great question, because to answer it just in one, it's what the motivation behind the behavior is.
Yeah.
That will clue you in to someone who's narcissistic. The motivation could be attention for me. The motivation could be manipulation, because I want to get what I want. So I'm going to try and manipulate you to get what I want. Whereas, somebody being wounded may just not realize it. And once you point it out, they go, oh my God, I'm so sorry. No, I didn't mean to do that.
Well, that's what we were talking about your father before we went on. And you made the comment that if somebody said something, or if he said something to somebody, that he would be, once you could say something, he would get it, or he'd understand it.
Right. Because he was autistic, so he didn't quite understand social norms, So for a while I thought, oh my God, is he a narcissist? But once you pointed it out, he'd go, oh my God, no, I'm sorry. And then he would reverse it, or he would, whereas a narcissist wouldn't be able to do that, because they wouldn't care.
Yeah. And you and I had opposite fathers, although my father was definitely on the spectrum. There would have been no awareness. None. Oh, I hurt your feelings. Oh,
right. But you shouldn't have done X, Y, Z.
Right.
That's how a narcissist would respond, whereas someone on the spectrum, or someone who just doesn't, is not aware, would go, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean that.
Yeah.
And take ownership and try and repair. maybe in a clumsy way, try and repair, but not more I don't care.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Here's a really good question, everybody. And Shirley, why do so many people stay in toxic relationships even when they know they're being emotionally harmed? What is happening psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually in those dynamics?
Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear spiritually.
Well, spiritually, what happens is, we pick something that's familiar or karmic, something that's karmic. Like I know when you meet somebody and you say, oh, I've known this person my whole life. And so you form this attachment with this belief that you have known this person your whole life, and it gets you into the relationship. And on some level that may be accurate because spiritually, you're trying to work things out or not work things out. And you have to know when you're not able to work things out. And so to set boundaries, maybe you're in this relationship to learn boundaries, because we learn through relationships. Mm-hmm. And so it could be boundaries you're learning. You may be learning what love is not. That's a big one in relationships, especially the ones that kind of come together like this. And then there's a big problem or a big blowout or whatever. But if you often come to learn what love is and what love is not. And so often it'll be, you're going to learn what love is not first, and then you get to learn what love is.
I'll never forget, you said one time, oh, don't confuse soulmate with cellmate.
Oh, cellmate. Yeah. Don't confuse it. People will say, oh, he was my soulmate. How did he treat me so badly? Oh, he was your cellmate. I get it. Now, soulmates come in every package. So we tend to think of soulmate as that, that love, passion, that one. Not necessarily at all. In fact, I would think that's pretty rare. But the cellmate is also a soulmate. It's just one that is tied to you, so you can learn certain things, which would be boundaries, exiting, I've had enough, any of those kind of things.
Right. Yeah. And from a psychological standpoint, I don't mean to simplify it, and I'll explain what I mean, but why do so many people stay in toxic relationships? Because we're human. Humans bond. And when we bond, we don't simply unbond because someone did something mean, because somebody hurt our feelings. That bond stays for a while. And it's one of the most, I'd say, difficult things to start to undo. So it takes time, plus most of the time someone isn't all bad. So it's what we call intermittent reinforcement. When they act like the person we fell in love with, it's like gambling. You win once in a while, and that keeps you wanting to, And so when they act like that, like the person we fell in love with, we want to be able to reach that again. And so we can rationalize or ignore or take the toxic behavior because we're wanting that we see once in a while, and that feels so good. So there's also, it can mimic our childhood.
Right.
Person is similar to a parent that we haven't fully healed our wounds from. I mean, there's a variety of reasons. The most important thing is to not be critical or judgmental of yourself. There's a valid reason why you would say, or even someone, I had a session with someone today whose wife was just horrific. And he said, and I still miss her. And sometimes I still want to be back with her, and yes, that's human. That's because the bond is still there. Many times to start to undo the bond, it's important to go no contact if you can do that.
Yeah.
Every time you have a little bit of contact, it can bring you right in again.
Right. Yeah. If you don't have an awareness.
Right, exactly. So when you're able to do that, not if there's kids involved or anything like that, but if you're able to go no contact, that helps with the unbonding.
Good point. Very good point. Anna Maria says, cellmate, so true for me. I have been learning a lot about myself and growing through the adversity. And that would be the point of having a cellmate. That would be the point of that. What have you learned about yourself? I mean, spiritually, that's why we come. We come to make good choices. Maybe the first 3 or 4 or 10 were not good. Maybe the 11th will be good. Maybe you choose yourself and go inward. I mean, ultimately, we are here to shift our consciousness, and relationships help us do that. Be amazed. So here's a question, Kelly. What happens when someone begins awakening spiritually, but the people around them don't understand the changes that they're going through? How do you stay grounded while evolving? Oh, this happens all the time. I mean, this is almost a normal daily thing that somebody begins to spiritually awake and their good friend or partner or whatever is not there with them. I mean, we don't awake in at the same time necessarily. It's an extraordinary if that could happen, but it doesn't typically happen. And so what happens is you start, as your vibration starts to change, as you become aware of things and your consciousness shifts, all of that's happening. And if you are in a relationship, typically the relationship may not work after that. I mean, because you've changed. And also this is where, like, what do they call it? The wheat from the chaff. I mean, it's people start to slough off because you can't tolerate the way they think anymore. They are just stuck in they're just stuck. And so often people start to change. And how do you stay grounded while evolving? You contemplate a lot, you sit, you work out, you really go inward, know thyself. It's an extraordinary experience to have a spiritual awakening when you are having in that process of learning and growing. You read, and it's an extraordinary process, but you can stay very grounded while you're doing this work. Drink a lot of water, don't drink alcohol, don't do drugs when you're having an awakening at all. Just really take really good care of yourself. Yeah. So I hope that answers the question. Because you know what I mean, Shirley, when, a partner, this one is going in this direction and the other one's not.
Right.
That happens.
It's important to, set boundaries. If the partner who isn't going through it is coming, is curious about your process, that's wonderful. You can have a wonderful conversation. If the person may feel a little intimidated, they may want to leave me without realizing that and becomes a little critical or something. That's an important place to notice and set boundaries.
It's so true. Charlene Miller says, I know exactly what you guys are saying. I wish you freedom to the person has left her cellmate. She said, it feels so wonderful not to walk on eggshells. Yeah. And walking on eggshells typically means somebody who's a personality disorder or borderline personality disorder. And in fact, before I forget, Shirley and I are teaching a class on June 27th. And if you would like to take this class, it's on understanding personality patterns, okay, and things that trigger you and boundaries. And these are the moments in life when you might find yourself asking, why do I react like this? Why does this person affect me so deeply? Or how did I get stuck in this pattern? And so this class is designed to bring some awareness and some clarity and some practical tools to these questions. So if in this class, you're going to learn about awareness and regulation and boundaries and communication and detachment with compassion and support. So if you've ever experienced in a relationship certain repeated struggles or emotional reactions, right, Shirley, that feel out of control, because sometimes you could be in a relationship that it suddenly gets out of control emotionally, or if you feel drained, or if you're walking on eggshells, this is a great class for this. So join us on June 27th, and it's a Zoom class, and I think you guys would really, really like it. Yes. And why do they act that way? Right. It's true. Why do they act that way? We could go on and on about that.
Yeah. So, again, understanding the why is important. Doesn't excuse the behavior, but then understanding it, I think, is a really important piece. It also helps to depersonalize. Oh, it's not because of me. This is how this person, thinks or acts. And also tools on how to deal with it is just as important.
Just as important. So this is a great question, Shirley. Oh my gosh. Lori says, I'm 65 and during therapy, I realized that having dyslexia and ADHD really affected you so far beyond the basics. Very true. And it's not uncommon for people to be in their 60s just to realize these really important moments, right? So she says, I wonder how you would get your partner to understand the new you. That's a great question too. Shirley, do you want to take that from the beginning?
Great question. Well, hopefully your partner is curious and you can talk about the shifts that you're feeling, what you're noticing, what you didn't know. There's so much kind of understanding that happens, and also self-compassion that can happen when you understand yourself it's not about labels, but it's about understanding, oh, this is why I do
This
it.
is it. Yeah.
And it can really create a lot of calming. I'll never forget when I had a name for my attachment, avoidant attachment. Oh, that's why I do that. It opened up a world,
Right.
and it made it easier also to then start to work on the pieces that I wanted to shift, that I wanted to change, that I didn't necessarily care about myself. So I would open up a conversation, and let your partner know the kind of awarenesses that you've discovered in now understanding that you're ADHD and dyslexic, and how that affected you, how maybe that caused you to think about things, maybe the judgments you made on yourself.
And also, in a relationship, we're always learning and growing about ourselves. Always. And sometimes when people get into a relationship, they think, well, I met you and you were this way, and so that's the way it's going to be. And that's just not accurate. We're at all. So yeah, as you said, I would encourage your partner to be curious. What does that mean? And then maybe your partner also has something there. I mean, we all have something or many things. Oh my gosh. Here's Shirley. This is a great question. Why can't some personality disorders be cured? For example, once a narcissist, always a narcissist? Such a great question. We have that in our book.
We do. The thing that's needed for anyone for any change to happen is awareness.
Yeah.
And that's the piece that's missing a lot of the time with personality disorders, is that it's all you. It's not me. I'm not doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
And without that awareness, how am I going to change something I'm not even aware exists? So I've worked with people that have had tendencies, or I was working with this person with borderline personality disorder, and she said at some point, I lose it a lot, and I don't understand why I lose it a lot. She was, her boyfriend had taken her out to her favorite restaurant for her birthday and given her exactly what she wanted. And she said, and I sat across from him and I wanted to bite his head off, and I wanted to yell and scream, and I was so angry. That was the entry point. That was the moment of insight. And I said, well, let's explore that.
It's a small window, by the way, when you get that.
Exactly. So
even available.
Exactly. But someone who is not aware at all, and many times it's because the shame is just so tremendous and they've split the shame away. And so having any kind of awareness would just cause them to feel like
their ego wouldn't be able to tolerate it.
Exactly. Like they would just cease from existing. And so when someone doesn't have any awareness, it's I'd say virtually impossible to change. Like if someone did something and it hurt your feelings and you said, you know what, you did hurt my feelings. If the person says, well, if you hadn't done this and this and that, and there's no ability, well, can you hear me when I say that hurt my feelings? And if the person is able to pause a little, I'm curious what happened, why you would do that. Well, let me give it some thought. There's a little bit of awareness.
A little bit. Doesn't mean that they will take it, and they doesn't mean that they'll stay aware at all. As a matter of fact, it's amazing how quickly they can rewrite history.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And that's another issue, where they view things through their own perspective. So they've rewritten history and they truly believe that.
Oh, yeah.
And so they will argue with you on the way that they've rewritten history. And so then you find yourself arguing about two different versions of the same.
Oh my gosh. Such a good question, Catherine, though. But boy, yeah. Once a narcissist, to me, always a narcissist. Once a borderline, always a borderline. I could keep going on. It's very, very, every once in a while, they'd have to really, really want to change. And typically they don't. Again, it's not them, it's you.
Right.
I want to say hi to Gayla Mathis. Shirley, she says hi to us from the Diamond Princess Cruise in Japan.
Oh my God, how lovely.
Yeah, I hope you're having a great time, honey.
Hi there.
And I also wanted to say hi to our other good friends, Shirley, Dwayne, and Elaine Morgan. Hi there.
My favorite people.
Lovely as usual. Our favorite, our family. I love these people. They're so great. A lot of people. Megan Kelly from Australia. Hi there.
Wow. Hi from Australia.
And Angel and Light says, Kelly, I pick up on people's energy very easily. So with that, you do want to watch the energy. I mean, you can pick up on it, which means that you can, you know where they're coming from, or you get their energy right away, but you don't hold on to that. You never hold on to anybody else's energy, ever.
Yeah.
Just pay attention to it and go, whoop, okay. I mean, that's what I think, Cheryl.
That's a great reminder. And you can do that, you can kind of, again, using imagery, imagine pushing their energy away, giving it back to them, not in a mean or aggressive way, but just with love, giving them back their energy, setting up a kind of a protective shield around you.
Good idea.
Respond to that. Yeah.
Shirley, here's another one from Charlene Miller. She says, it makes me wonder if all abusers are narcissistic. Well, at the very least, probably.
I mean, probably, because, the thing with narcissists is they're kind of literally missing the empathy chip, of like missing a computer chip. And so it's very difficult, virtually impossible to put themselves into your shoes. And so you'd have to have that chip missing to do something harmful to somebody else without any kind of feeling bad or remorse, for doing something.
Yeah. I mean, that's
with somebody else.
Yeah. It's such a drag, with this, but very good observation with that. Shirley. So here's a question, Shirley. Can trauma change a person's intuition? And how do we know the difference between genuine spiritual discernment and living in a survival mode or hypervigilance?
Well, that's very interesting. Wonderful, wonderful questions. I mean, there are some people that come from a very chaotic and traumatic, childhood. And part of their survival skill is to notice every little shift, every little change, every little facial expression, every little, thing in someone in order to be a step ahead of it and stay safe. And so many times adults, who had to go through that can feel somewhat psychic or somewhat, and so I don't know. I mean, I think that's a great question for you.
It's how you just said it. You answered it really well. I mean, because when you are living in abusive situations or a lot of trauma, you do have to pay attention to every single little thing. And I've always thought that trauma helped lead me to be very psychic. I mean, I just think that's an accurate statement. But then I had to learn discernment. And so discernment is a whole other ball game there, and also I had to pay attention to, was I on hypervigilance? Because sometimes if you're around personality disorders, you will be on hypervigilance. And so, all of this comes down to discernment. Everything comes down to discernment with that. And then you start to learn a lot about yourself with all of this.
Yeah. And notice the difference. If you're hypervigilant, your nervous system is going to feel, in fight or flight all the time. It's not going to feel calming or relaxing. When you're spiritual like yourself, then noticing things, you can be in a calm state and notice things. Yeah. But if you're living in hypervigilance, you're not going to feel calm. And so that's a really big difference of noticing how you feel, whether you're living in hypervigilance and noticing everything, or whether you're calm and noticing everything. One would come more from trauma. The other one would come more from, spirituality and intuition.
Right. Really good answer. Okay. Here's a good question from Vivian. She says, hi, Kelly and Dr. Shirley. Thank you for this show. Do you have any advice to find peace and to let go of the anger around an unexpected death? Not easy. Vivian, it's really hard. If there is an unexpected death, there are there's different traits that we go through when we have loss. And one of them is anger. But an unexpected death would bring out anger very quickly, I would think. So how do you find peace with that? You may not for some time. It's a place to strive for.
Yeah.
You know, are you angry? Did somebody cause this? Are you angry at somebody? Are you angry at the person who didn't take care of themselves? Are you angry because the person got hit by a car? I mean, what are you angry about? That would be something I would love to know.
Yeah.
And then and how do you move through the getting to a place of being grateful for that person being in your life? That's a hard one, Vivian. That's a really hard one.
It's a hard one. It's also important to validate that anger, to not criticize it or judge it. You know, it's a human emotion. That doesn't mean that makes you a bad person or a wrong person. I would just name it and validate it and be with it. And what would the anger, is there an impulse there? What would the anger want to do or say? And know that you're just processing that emotion of anger. It's not because of it's who you are or that you would ever do that, you know. So the best way to get through an emotion is to validate it, to name it, to be with it, to feel it. And then it passes.
Yeah. But that's a big one. That unexpected death is it's a hard one. Michelle says, hey, Michelle Kavanaugh, she says, thank you for this. As I was married to someone with a personality disorder for 9 years, and these talks are so helpful. I know, Michelle, that must have been a nightmare. It's such a tough one. Now, Teresa says, narcissists are missing the empathy chip for others, but they sure have a big fat empathy for themselves. They feel sorry for themselves all the time. Now, Shirley, would that be the elf one? Would that be a covert narcissist?
Well, I mean, they all are self-serving, so they all want for themselves, and they'll pout or cry or, you know, get angry and indignant if they're not getting what they want, you know, and so that we can view that as empathy for themselves, but it becomes pathological. It's not really kind of under the umbrella of empathy. It comes more of a different place, from winning, from getting what they, you know, what they never got.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a question. My son and I live with my dad because he's older and he needs help. He's 77, but he thinks he can still talk to me like I'm 12 and call me names and be verbally abusive. Any advice? That's a tough one because he's 77 and you have to look at, gosh, Shirley, what elder abuse with that?
Well, I would, you know, as much as possible, boundaries are going to be the most important thing. And as much as possible to do it in the most calm way. Dad, it's not okay to talk to me like that. I'm going to leave the room right now and I'll be back. You know, if you can leave the room, if it's not, you know, where he needs help or something. But just consistently in the most monotone voice ever. Dad, not okay to talk to me like that. Dad, that's not okay. Now, it's not going to change him, but you're also role modeling for your child, you know, that bad behavior is not tolerable. He may continue to treat you that way, but always having a voice of when he does it and doing something different, either removing yourself when you can, you know, is, again, you're standing up for yourself, again, even if the behavior doesn't change, and you're also role modeling for your child that that's not okay, that we don't just tolerate it because it's coming from dad.
Yeah. And boundaries for sure. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. Here's one. Jen Gurn says, hello, when being emotionally exhausted from compound losses. So Jen had, she lost 2 husbands and a good friend all within like 6 months.
Oh gosh.
So it was a lot. And she says within 8 months, and responsibilities. How do you know normal grief versus being overwhelmed? I think you're a combo platter, Jen. I think you're going to be way overwhelmed. That's way too much loss for a small amount of time and large losses. So overwhelmed, and I think it's going to be all of the combined, actually. Oh my God.
You can't do a grief support group.
Yeah.
Always not feeling alone in your own grief.
Yeah, it's so true. Charlene says, do you find it easy to read people that are bad-hearted people? I myself feel as I can see right through them. Guess trauma has made me very aware. I too can see when people have pure souls. Oh yeah. She goes, I love peace like this. I do too, Charlene. Yeah, I can see when I want to work with somebody and when I really don't.
I mean, sometimes they control you, you know, like your mom would tell me once in a while, honey, sometimes they still bamboozle me, you know. So sometimes
bamboozled. Yeah.
People can only hold you know, sustained behavior that isn't naturally coming from them for, at the most, I've seen like the higher functioning people 9 months. So once you start to see cracks, then you might be working with someone who isn't fully who they're presenting themselves to be.
You're patient, Cheryl. Okay, Carolyn Stewart says, my sister passed away suddenly, and I was so angered and cried so much for months that she would visit me almost every night in my dreams. And we talked, and it helped me so much. Carolyn, that's a win-win. That's a really great story that you just said, and it gives a lot of people hope, because some people will say to me, oh, I haven't seen my loved one. They haven't come by. So your sister passed suddenly. I bet you were angry. And I love that she was visiting you so much. That's so fantastic. Good story. Hey, Luzette, how are you? Okay, Shirley. Wow.
Wow. That hour went by fast, didn't it?
It did. It really did. Oh my gosh. And tonight reminds us of how connected that we really are. So many of these questions come back to the same thing, understanding ourselves more deeply.
Yeah. And always remember that when we bring curiosity instead of judgment, awareness becomes possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for joining us so much for Psychology and the Soul, where psychology and spirituality are no longer separate, and awareness is something we practice together.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's so sweet. Luzette says, Kellee, you helped me so much as a medium for my husband that died suddenly. Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you so much. I do have some sessions available for June. So please go ahead and look at my calendar. Everybody's giving us lots of thank you, Shirley. So we look forward to everybody seeing you. I'll see you on Thursday for my show, Ask Me Anything. And Gayla, have fun at that in Japan. I can't wait to hear about your trip.
Have a wonderful time. Thank you for taking us with you.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. All right, everybody. Take care. Thank you, Shirley.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.